Okay, looks like it's 5 o'clock, so we'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, Cassandra, please.
Hadley.
Here.
LaScholz.
Here.
Burns.
Here.
Gilbert.
Here.
Chartrand.
Here.
Morahan. Here. Kulzer.
Here.
Osborne.
Here.
King.
Here.
Dahlhoff.
Here. Please stand for the invocation and the pledge of the flag. We gather here tonight in this time of great stress and anxiety to serve the community with the best of our ability. Please may we find the strength, the insight, and the vision to follow the best course of action to guide us forward in these difficult times. Amen. Amen. Please flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The 5/13/2020 board meeting minutes have been distributed. If there are no amendments, they stand approved. Report of the Finance and Rules Committee per Rule 6, Cassandra.
The Finance and Rules Committee has met and they recommend to waive rules to act upon late resolutions.
Need a motion?
So moved.
Ron, second by Jerry. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Privilege of the floor. And first, we're going to open up the public hearing for comment on local law number 5-2020, a local law permitting altering vehicle operation on approximately 0.65 miles of certain portions of Burdick's Crossing Road, County Road number 36. So, is there anyone here that would like the opportunity to speak on that?
Mr. Chairman, I have comments that I received.
Okay.
The first comment is from Douglas Dietrich. Dear legislators, I am writing concerning the opening of a section of the Burdick's Crossing Road that connects Branningham to the Tug Hill. This is a very important connection because in the past years when businesses were selling the permits, Branningham was the largest seller of these. Hopefully you will open that section of the road and add signage to clarify the new trail. This will prevent people from tearing down fencing and riding on private property. It might be nice at the Route 12 Burdick's Crossing intersection to have a sign telling them to ride on the blacktop. Thank you for considering this request to open that section of Burdick's Crossing Road. The next comment is from Ron Holt. Dear board members, please consider opening the Burdick's Crossing for ATV/UTV vehicles. I've always enjoyed the Branningham ride and their businesses. That's it.
Thank you. If there are no comments from the floor, next on the list is a enforcement hearing for Derek J. Farr's property. Joan, do you want to take that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. If Mr. Farr is here, I would ask him to step forward. And Legislator Morahan has a conflict here, and Mr. Chairman, she'd like to be excused during the hearing.
You're excused. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to the prior resolution of this board setting the hearing for tonight, I have provided with the board 3 separate exhibits. Exhibit A is offered to the board. That is the original notice of hearing with attachments which were sent to Mr. Farr, with a copy of the report from the Code Enforcement Officer Ward Daly attached, along with a copy of Local Law 10-2019, which is the subject of this hearing. All of those documents were sent to Mr. Farr by regular mail, by certified mail. He was personally served by the deputy sheriff, and his property was also posted with those notices. And you'll notice in Exhibit B that the last attachment is an email that I received from Mr. Farr himself, along with a picture of his dog eating steak on the letter that I sent to him, so clearly he did receive it. So he had notice of tonight's meeting. I would also note for the record that I received 3 separate phone calls from Mr. Farr over the past 2 or 3 weeks after he had been served with these documents, with some of those phone calls recorded and forwarded on to the sheriff because of the nature of the calls. Exhibit C contains an updated report from our code enforcement officer, Ward Daly, who is here tonight. And Ward, if I could just call you up for a second.
Yes, ma'am.
If you would stand and take the mask off while you speak for the record. Ward, you were the code enforcement officer assigned to the Farr property in Watson, New York.
Yes, ma'am.
And over the course of the last 2 years, as a code enforcement officer, have you filed violations against the property for violation of the junkyard laws?
I have.
And did you provide the board with an updated report a few months ago recommending that this hearing be held?
I did.
In preparation for tonight, did you have the opportunity to visit the property again?
I did.
When was that?
It was June 1st,
Which was Monday?
Monday.
And does Exhibit C, which you have a copy of, contain not only your updated summary report, but also approximately 7 or 8 pictures of the property and the condition of the property as of this Monday?
It is.
And as a result of your observation of the property, is it your recommendation or is it your finding that this property is in violation of Local Law 10, 2019?
The property remains in violation.
And how is it in violation? What in particular?
It has 3 vehicles on it, unlicensed, unregistered. It has 3 campers, lots of scrap, lots of bicycles. It's just it's a junkyard. By definition, it's a junkyard.
And is all of that debris and material right off of the road on his property?
Right adjacent to it.
And would you say it's 10 feet in or less?
Beginning right at the road line and going back.
Okay. How could he remedy the violations under the local law?
Mr. Farr actually has enough property where he could put in a junkyard if he chose to.
And what would he have to do in order to have a junkyard that's in compliance?
He would have to apply for a license and then move his material 50 feet back away from the property lines and put a fence so it couldn't be viewed from Wetmore Road,
And how high would the fencing have to be?
8 feet high.
Was Mr. Farr provided with a copy of the application for a junkyard?
He was physically given the applications.
And also the secret form that would be involved?
Absolutely. And screening.
Did you ever receive a signed application back from him?
No.
For how many years have you been dealing with Mr. Farr on this property location?
The initial complaint was April 29th of 2015,
And has he been brought to the local courts for enforcement?
multiple times.
And he's been fined by those local courts?
Well, he's been found guilty. I don't know if he's actually paid the fines.
But he's been fined.
Yes, ma'am.
So is it your recommendation that the board take action itself to remedy this property to have it become in compliance?
It is.
Nothing further. So, Mr. Chairman and board members, according to the local law, the board has the ability to fashion a remedy itself here tonight. It can determine, number one, to direct me to bring the action, further action in the Supreme Court for a special proceeding. It can render a finding itself here tonight and direct that Mr. Farr be given additional time to clean up his property or bring it into compliance, and/or this body can also determine that it is in violation, he's been given enough chances, and direct that either our county departments go in and clean the property to bring it out of compliance, to bring it into compliance, and charge the property owner on his taxes with any cost that we may incur, or the board can direct that an outside agency be brought in and paid by the county to clean the property and then charge his taxes accordingly for the expenses that the county incurs.
Do you recommend going to Supreme Court?
At this point in time, given the COVID situation, there are not a lot of cases being moved very rapidly through the Supreme Court at this time, so that would take a significant period of time. However, I would recommend that perhaps the board consider giving Mr. Farr 30 days, another 30 days to clean it up, and maybe then either, in the meantime, I could file something in the Supreme Court if this body doesn't want it direct in order itself.
If we weren't under these circumstances, would you recommend the Supreme Court option?
Given
I'm
the
just trying to
nature,
learn, right?
just given the nature of Mr. Farr and what I think we can expect that any of our employees will face going to his property and trying to remedy that property, I would recommend that we get a Supreme Court order.
I guess one of the questions is, and you said it, and it may solve, I'm not saying it's gonna solve the problem, but if he would do what's necessary, move back 50 feet, put a fence up, this problem would be over.
Yes.
And if he's not willing to do that, which it seems like he's not, we're gonna be carrying this through anyways. So I guess my fellow legislators, committee and stuff like that, and all of them, give them 30 days to get in compliance. And then also let Joan, if it's not done in 30 days, apply to the Supreme Court, we're done.
Sounds good. We need a motion for that, John.
Yes, we.
Make that a motion, Jerry.
Yes, I do.
Do I have a second on that? Bill? Any discussion?
Make sure I understand. What do we, assuming we go through with this or the Supreme Court thing, what's the ultimate resolution of that? How does that work?
In the Supreme Court, we would be seeking for the court to give us their legal authority for us to enter the property and to clean it up through the court, not just the legislative body here. That will also help us with to have law enforcement assist us in the event that we need to go onto the property.
So that seems like that's the primary reason to go that way.
Yes.
Okay, I'm good.
Seems like a good reason.
He's got, I mean, it's been this long, 5 years roughly. I don't think anything's gonna change, but at least he should have
Is there a motion?
Yeah, we're in discussion now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
stuff like that, so I'm fine with it.
Ian? Everyone set? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
Thank you, Joan.
Thank you.
Moving on to presentation of petitions, communications, and notices.
The following resolutions were received. A resolution to call on New York State to release enhanced federal Medicaid matching funds to counties and New York City from Greene County and Schuyler County. A resolution requesting New York State to restore state retirement service credits to Schuyler County workers who temporarily lost their service credits due to the county's temporary workforce reduction from Schuyler County. A resolution calling on the congressional delegation to provide counties with direct federal aid to support counties' COVID-19 response and reopening economic activity efforts from Columbia County, Greene County, and Essex County. And a resolution joining Assembly Minority Leader Will Barclay in calling the legislature back into session to return to its basic principle of representative democracy from Greene County. That is it.
Thank you. Mr. Kayer, do you have anything that you wanted to discuss? Mention?
Not tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, did anybody else want to use privilege of the floor to speak?
Does anyone else have anything they would like to bring up for privilege of the floor, other than the two topics we just had? If not, we'll move on to reports of county officers and departments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Legislators have received copies of the Treasurer's May report, the May Highway and Solid Waste Department audit reports, and minutes of the May Youth Bureau Advisory Board meeting. Brian Mooney submitted the April and May Sealer of Weights and Measures activity report, which has been placed on file with the clerk of the board. That is it.
Thank you. Reports of standing committees. Tom, would you like to start with finance and rules, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance and Rules Committee has nothing to report at this time.
Any questions for Tom? If not, we'll move on to Jerry with General Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did have a couple of questions. We were talking about replacing the track hole and also the grade hole. Track hole's got around 10,000 hours on it. So it's getting to the point that maybe another 2 or so you start worrying about the engine. So, I mean, if it's got that many hours on it, I kind of support getting a new one if we can work it in. And the grade hole, back a few years ago, it's newer, but with the grade hole, we turned around and lost a hydraulic pump. When we lost the hydraulic pump, a lot of metal and stuff went through the hydraulic system. Ruined the spool. They homed that out to a certain extent, but they're still fighting that, so it's wearing on it pretty bad. So that's the reason for wanting to replace the grade also. With that in mind, you know, we don't know how much longer it's going to last. We're probably better off doing that too, if we can get it through where we're trying to. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Any questions for Jerry? Thank you, Jerry. Move on to Randy with Health and Human Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have nothing to report at this time.
Questions for Randy? If not, Dick, is the hospital Jaffa from the board?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll be brief. We've had some Zoom meetings and what have you, but we haven't had one like this, so we've got quite a few employee of the months that have been granted award. I'd just like to give out their names and what the different stuff. For the month of February, Tina Dickup, RN. For the month of March, Joanne Dickinson, a phlebotomist. And for April, Mackenzie Bellinger, adult daycare coordinator. If you see those people around, thank them for the great job they're doing. That's all I have. And later, I think you're going to have a resolution to sign. I'll speak to that at that time.
Okay. Questions for Dick? Before we move on to the county manager report, it's nice to be back, nice to see everyone, nice to be moving into phase 2, and hopefully we continue the process. We have a couple of ad hoc committees out there that have not met since this crisis began. But now that we're able to meet in person again, I've talked with Randy, and we would like to get the salary ad hoc committee back together again and see if we can finalize that process. We were about 85% through it, and then we just need to wrap it up and come to a conclusion there. So we'll reach out for meeting dates and see what everyone's able to make, comfortable with. Second one is our ad hoc committee on buildings. I don't believe that anyone is comfortable or would be comfortable with moving forward with that at this point. until we have a better handle on where we are financially. So in my mind, it's best to probably put that off for a couple months until, or whatever it takes to enable us to make a decision on whether first we're able to move forward with that or not. I think in the meantime, it's probably, and maybe we should consider, it's up to the committee obviously, but we're moving forward with the windows and the insulation at the highway department. We're trying to move forward with the gas pumps, and possibly we should move forward with the boiler replacement at the PSB building. So we can discuss those, but I think everyone is probably anxious to get back to work and looking forward to getting something moving again. So, thank you. Phil?
Jerry, did we let the contract to do the survey up at the jail? We did, didn't we?
Yes, but I don't know where Matt's at. I'll have to check with him to see if he's had the people come in and check to make sure everything's adequate before we put the same system in and doesn't meet all of our needs.
I just wanted, I thought we had, and I just wanted to.
Yeah, that was last month, I believe. We okayed it.
Any other comments? If not, we'll move on to the county manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do know on that boiler project that we've had at least 2 vendors do a walkthrough to take a look at things, but I don't know where we are with the RFP, so we'll follow up with that. I want to start by just a couple thank yous. First of all, like Larry said, it's great to have everybody back here. It's been kind of lonely up here on the 2nd floor without people popping in and out, so we're glad to see everybody. Big thank you to our staff, who has been just phenomenal, in my opinion, throughout the whole process, public health in particular. I think over the next couple of months, we're going to have to do some things to recognize some people that have really stepped up above and beyond over the last few months. And then, as Larry said, we are in the phase 2 of the reopening. That means offices, finance, insurance, retail, administrative support, real estate, and rental, hair salons and barbershops are open, which is great. Some of our county functions are moving forward. The courthouse is open to the public. Obviously, it's a kind of a different scene than what you have seen before. We've got plexiglass up, you know, in between some of the forward public-facing, you know, counters and things like that. There's some tape on the ground to ensure social distancing. We're doing the temperature screening and, of course, asking people to wear a mask. So not exactly as it was back in February, but we're working in the right direction, which is good. I did just hear today that our bus operations has a plan for reopening. We've been running routes all along, but some of our larger routes that go out of the county we did suspend. So on June 15th, JCC and Utica routes will be back online, so that's good. And the Old Forge route, which we typically run in the summer, will be up and running on June 27th. So we are going to run those routes as long as we can do it safely. We've been working with Bernie Bus to make sure that we've got social distancing space on the buses and everybody's going to be safe. And we were able to suspend fares for the bus program due to some revenue from the CARES Act. But starting July 1st, we will begin charging fares again on the bus routes. Phase 3, you know, we pretty much flat out asked our control room folks today when they could expect that the North Country would go into phase 3, and the answer was pretty much that to be determined. There's no timeline yet for phase 3. We have learned that DMV will be included in phase 3, so that's good. We'll know, you know, that we'll be able to do in-person transactions when we enter phase 3. As Larry was mentioning, and we've been working on through our Zoom meetings, we do have to keep our eye on the financial situation of the county. As we've been saying before, we're still waiting on federal aid. So to date, we've received a little bit of money for OFA for the meal program, which we appropriated at committee and will be appropriating tonight. And we've received some money for the bus program through the CARES Act. But that's about it. We have received, for general operating expenses, for revenue loss, we've received nothing from the federal government. So very hopeful that they can pass, a fourth stimulus package. Hopefully sometime in the next month or so. That would be really helpful. New York State is also projecting a $63 billion budget deficit, so at least our financial woes aren't as bad as theirs. The governor has a June 30th deadline where he can announce what cuts can be expected for local governments and schools. Just a brief update from NISAC on some of the things that they're tracking in Albany. The state legislature is full speed ahead with a 120-day property tax delay, so you wouldn't have to pay your property taxes for 120 days, which on the surface sounds nice and is a good relief for people, but think about all the taxing jurisdictions that we do property taxes for, and how many re-levies and how many bills we would have to keep track of, because we make everybody whole, right? And then we collect the delinquencies. So that would be a pretty big mess that NISAC is trying to educate people in Albany about, the problems that would create. It sounds good on the surface, but it would be pretty problematic for us folks on the ground. We're also tracking delays in state reimbursement and state aid. So this is pretty common when the state gets into financial trouble. They start delaying some of their payments to us because it helps them with cash flow. One of the delays was the state told us for an enhanced review process of the reimbursement. So right now we're tracking 4 programs that are behind statewide. CHIPS, as we talked about last week, we still don't have our CHIPS commitment letter from the state. That's our highway funding. That is, none of the towns and villages or counties have received any commitment on CHIPS yet. That's at least a month overdue at this point. Early intervention in preschool with public health, we're targeting that because the State Division of Budget is insisting, and I know Greg and I have had conversations about this, but basically insisting that we continue to pay tuition-based payments even though we haven't been sending the kids to the program. So we're tracking that. DSS reimbursement, we in Lewis County haven't felt any delay yet, but some of the bigger counties have, which means it's headed our way. And then the federal FMAP program, which is the federal share of Medicaid that comes into the county. The state has not dispersed their share, the federal government's share of Medicaid to the county since 2015. So we are quite behind in that as well. So those types of things are what we can expect. When the state has cash flow problems, they try to hold on every dollar as long as they can. And so I think we can expect our operations to grind right along with them. So that's where we're at.
So you softened us up with 2 sentences of good news, and then put the hammer down, didn't you?
I guess so, Bill.
Any questions for Ryan?
Yeah, I do have one, Larry.
Jerry?
With that delay of 120 days, what's that do to us financially as far as, or anybody that's collecting taxes? Because usually in a month or 2, people are using those.
Yeah, so if it does become law, first of all, we hope the governor vetoes it because it would be a mess. But if it does become law, we are in a position locally, luckily in Lewis County, where we do have a good reserve, and we could afford to make everybody equal, all the school districts, all the towns, all the villages, without creating a cash flow problem for us. Some counties couldn't do that. You count on the money to come in so you can send it out. We could send money out from our reserves and then wait for, the rest to come in. But the problem is collecting, all of those 120-day delays and then, making sure the money goes where it's supposed to go. That would be a nightmare for Eric's team. So if it does happen, I think our strategy, and we got to talk about this, everything's happening very quickly, but I think our strategy would probably be to take the burden and make our towns and schools and villages whole, probably, and then we would, have to figure out our end afterwards. But it would be probably easier for us to figure it out than to put the burden on all of them to try to do it.
The schools will be the first affected, and that's the biggest burden
Yep.
on them and us.
Mhm.
The moratorium would apply to anybody, or is it based on hardship, or?
Nope, just 120 days. Anybody who doesn't want to pay gets an extra 3 months, more or less, the way it's written now.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yep.
Anyone else? Thank you, Ryan. Moving on to county treasurer, Eric.
Yes, I provided you a 2-page report on our reserve balances. If you can take a look at those, really limited activity so far to date in those reserve balances, but those are there for your information. On the second page, I would note is your running totals for sales taxes, and we've been paying attention to that number. We will be expecting a payment later this week, and I will keep you up to date as we receive that payment and more in the future. So we continue to track that and see how the impact on sales taxes will be affecting us throughout the remainder of the year. The internal service fund, or the health insurance fund, just a couple of notes there. As you can see, our fund balance from 2018 to the end of 2019 did increase to a healthy amount. So at the end of 2019, the balance was $5.2 million. The growth this year has been slower than what we saw last year, so that trend is softening a little bit, but that has seen a good increase in the last couple of years. Any questions on any of those? And I have one more comment. If there's no other questions on that. I think the one other thing we have not talked about over the last couple of months is the impact of the COVID-19, but I've been looking at our cash balances and our interest earnings, and again, just something that hasn't really come to our attention, but the change there is significant, and I'm not sure if you're looking at that from your own financial perspective. And I think 2 points to that. In early March, I had some discussion with a company that helps counties, municipalities, school districts in looking at their interest earnings and maximizing those. The company's name is 3+1. And I was intending to bring forward to you a recommendation that we start to utilize their services. And really quick summary, they do a very detailed analysis of all of your cash balances, all of your spending activity to help you monitor what you have invested, when you invested, when you need cash on hand, when you can invest to make sure you are maximizing your interest earnings. It seemed very logical to me as I learned about it. They charge an annual fee, but in theory, you're going to recoup significantly more in your interest earnings if you follow their program. So I learned about that early in March, and it was like, this makes just complete sense. Things changed on about March 15th. Just really quick estimates, we probably were budgeted, forecast to maybe earn about $220,000 to $250,000 in interest this year. Rates back in early March were about, I think, in the 1.0 to 1.2% range. I don't know if anyone knows what they've dropped to, but as of today we were earning 0.12. That's 0.0012 if you're doing the math. So from a $200,000 plus revenue, we're going to be maybe at about a $20,000 interest revenue this year. So that's just one more number that we will see an impact in our finances this year. Again, I would like to at some point bring forward this 3+1 in this company that could help us with that. I'll get that to you in the future, but right now it's if I said to you, let's do this, and we're going to spend some money to engage this firm, the payback, I can't guarantee that because the interest rates are just so low. As much as they could help us maximize our interest, it would be hard to see if we could actually recoup the fees that we would pay them.
What's a ballpark on the fee?
In the $30,000 to $35,000 annual range. Now, as I learn more about it, I'm not sure if it's, I think the first year is going to be very beneficial.
how their services continue to impact you going forward. It would be interesting to see that. Again, I think right up front, they're going to have just a tremendous impact, and then if you follow their program, maybe you could carry it on without their services. But I think counties that are using them have benefited greatly and are continuing to use them. But so initial fee in that range.
Have you discussed it with counties that are using them?
I have not directly. A lot of meetings of the County Treasurers Association have been put on hold just as much as everything else has been put on hold, so I've not had the chance to have direct one-on-one, and I've not taken the time to reach out, phone or email, but I will do that in the future.
NISAC, they're NISAC sponsors these guys though, right?
Yes, I think they're a NISAC recommended vendor. So just to, again, more information on the financial situation and some things to think about for the future. And that's all I have today.
Any questions for Eric? Anyone? Thank you, Eric. Report of the Finance and Rules Committee for Rule 7, Cassandra.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance and Rules Committee reports that they have examined the claims presented for payment in the total amount of $684,389.02 and recommend that they be audited and allowed for the amounts claimed.
Any motion? Jerry, second by Ron. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carries. Before we go into resolutions, is there anyone here that would like to comment on opening the Burdick Crossing Road on Route 36? I think we're okay time-wise, right?
Yes, we are.
If not, we will close that public hearing and move on to resolutions.
Mr. Chairman, did you want to ask the members?
So we can do these resolutions as a slate if everyone's agreeable to that. There are some that we'll need to pull out, and we can do the rest of them by slate if that's everyone's preference.
It seems good.
All right, so let's do that.
Okay. So we are going to have to do 136 separate, the adopting the local law separate. I would just like to mention that resolution 147 is withdrawn, and we would like to also pull out resolution 152. So I'll start by doing the auditing and adopting the local law, and then we'll do the slate, and we can finish with resolution 152.
Okay.
So the first one is auditing and allowing the claims in the amount of $684,389.02.
Moved by Randy, second by Ron. Any discussion? Roll call.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Morahan,
Yes.
LaSchultz,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Hathaway,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Yes.
Burns, Chartrand,
Yes.
Kulzer,
Yes.
Dahlhoff.
Yes.
Okay, the next one is resolution adopting and otherwise treating local law number 4, 2020, which is a local law permitting all-terrain vehicle operation on approximately 0.65 miles of certain portions of Burdick's Crossing Road.
Moved by Jerry, second by Ron. Any discussion? That's a roll call.
Yep. King,
Yes.
Kulzer,
Yes.
Chartrand,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Hathaway,
Yes.
LaSchultz,
Yes.
Gilbert,
Yes.
Morahan,
Yes.
Osborne,
Yes.
Dahlhoff.
Yes.
That takes effect immediately.
Yes, I believe that takes effect immediately, right, Joe?
Yes.
Okay, so next we will do the slate of resolutions.
Need someone to move that bill, second by Greg. Any discussion?
The ones that were withdrawn, are we going to discuss what the reasons for the withdrawal was at all, or?
It was, it referenced the wrong CDGB program. It should have been the microenterprise program for the IDA, and this cited the home ownership.
So we got
So we're gonna do it for
Right,
next
wanted to
month,
bring it up,
yeah.
okay? And was 152 also withdrawn?
Nope, we're going to do that one next.
Oh, okay,
That was pulled out.
thank you.
There was no time, it was not, 147 was not time critical, so.
No, that's fine, I just,
Thanks, Bruce.
Okay, so a motion to move them, we've done that. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The slate carries.
Okay, and then we have a resolution reappointing Jennifer Jones as Commissioner of the Lewis County Department of Social Services.
Jerry moves it, second by Phil. Any discussion?
Can I make a note, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
A couple of weeks ago, Commissioner Jones celebrated her 30th anniversary with Lewis County as an employee, so worth noting and worth congratulating.
In my opinion, Jenny's done a very commendable, excellent job. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for reappointing me. It's a wonderful privilege to work here in Lewis County. So, not always enjoyed every day of the last 30 years, but it's certainly a challenge.
Okay, did we move this? I think we moved it, right? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Is there any other business?
Yeah, I had one question for Joan. We may have phrased it wrong and maybe too late. At the end of the time frame that we gave Mr. Clark, if it's not done, you're automatically going to take care of the paperwork. We don't need to have more discussion. right?
No, I'm going to actually start the paperwork
Okay,
now.
thank you.
Any other business?
Can I just say something? Kind of off the wall as usual. But I haven't talked for 3 months, you know, so.
Haven't got a haircut either.
No, I haven't. I did. You can tell I follow the rules.
Okay, go see Randy's barn.
It lasts longer.
First one's on the house.
It's kind of regarding that kind of thing. I haven't exactly gone far and wide, but everywhere I went, I think that we should thank the people of the North Country in general and Lewis County in particular, because anywhere you go, anywhere I've gone, 95% of the people are wearing a mask and 99% of the people are spacing well. They're being very polite about it, and I just wanted to kind of put that out there as a thank you to our residents for doing the right thing and helping us get into phase 2 and hopefully 3.
I would add to that the North Country region, which is our control room region, consists of Lewis County, Jefferson County, St. Lawrence County, Franklin, Clinton, Essex, and Hamilton. We've been very lucky up here, and it's probably due to what Phil mentions, that everyone has practiced social distancing and tried to wear a mask and stay home. Currently, in those 7 counties, there are 0 hospitalizations, which I think is truly remarkable. So we can be very thankful for that our region has been we've survived so well from this point. So.
hard parts to keep it up.
Yeah, right. It is for me too. This is getting old.
Okay, any other business?
I would just like to thank the frontline workers, the factory workers, everyone who's been working diligently every day. And we're still free, kind of free from that strike. Thank you.
We've been very fortunate. Motion to adjourn. Ron, second by Dick. We're getting hand up fast enough.
I was gonna say those.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.
Good job, Ron.
That is my job.